Hey friends, Amanda here, Bare Bones Living. Welcome back. And today I am making my last pork project. I have here 4.5 pounds of ground pork, the last of the pork that I have to process, and I am going to be making chorizo with that. And I found a recipe. I'm not new to eating chorizo, but I have never made it myself. So I found a video on YouTube of all places with a recipe, and I will link that video below. This is not my recipe. Go show her some love to follow that recipe. That's on her page. So I made this recipe. Her recipe calls for 1.5 pounds of ground pork. So I tried it, and my first impression of it was it's delicious. She referred to it as a mild chorizo, and it's something that you make the seasoning and then you let it sit overnight to kind of marinate, and then you cook it the next day. So I did that, and right after I initially made it, that's what we had for dinner the following night. And when I first made it, I would have rated it at a medium chorizo, which is unfortunately a little too spicy for my family. But I made 1.5 pounds of it, and we only ate maybe half of that for dinner. So the rest of that went into the refrigerator, and my husband and I finished that because he liked it too, but he thought it was a little bit spicy for his liking. But we didn't want to give it to the boys because they thought it was a little bit too spicy. But what we noticed is as it sat longer, it got much more mild. And that like little extra kick that we wish wasn't there in our first time eating it, it wasn't there anymore. It mellowed out big time. So I am going to, my initial plan was to half the peppers, the guajillo peppers that was called for in the recipe, just to try to trim down that extra kick of heat. But I'm just gonna follow the regular original recipe, and I'm hoping, because I'm making this to freeze, so I'm hoping that by doing the overnight marinade and then packaging it and putting it in my freezer is going to meld this out quite a bit. And my husband had the same reaction. He's like, yeah, it was perfect. It was not spicy, too spicy at all. So again, follow this recipe that I'm linking below, and it's a good one, but I will show you what I'm going to do. So here are my ingredients. These I did have to buy. The ancho chili powder, this anote, achote, I don't know, powder, pasilla, and guajillo chilies. I did have to order those. So for each recipe, I'm tripling it, but you need 4 guajillos and 1 pasilla, and I cut these open and I took out all the veins and the seeds of all these peppers. My pork, in here I have garlic and peppercorns and cloves whole. I'm going to be using marjoram, cumin, thyme, oregano, and salt. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly toast these peppers. You don't want to burn them or anything. You're basically just warming them up to make them start releasing their oils and their fragrance. You don't want to burn them and make them bitter. So I'm just using my cast iron, and I'll keep rotating them, warming them up. And once you start to smell them and you can feel them heat up, we're gonna take them out and put them into a bowl. Once they're all toasted, I'm just gonna chop them up in my container, and then I'm going to cover them in warm water to rehydrate. While the peppers are rehydrating, I am going to use my mortar and pestle to start grinding up my paste. And what I have in here again is cloves of garlic, peppercorns, and whole cloves. And so these are all round roly-poly things that we have to break up. So I'm gonna start by putting something underneath this mortar and pestle, or molcajete, I think is what they call it in Spanish. But I don't want it to scratch up my countertop. But I'm gonna try to break those up so that they don't go flying all over the place, is my hope. But we're going to want to try to grind all that up. And then I'm going to add some salt into here to help all this start releasing. So most everything in here is broken down, but now I need to add the rest of the seasonings in here, and I'm going to be adding, in her recipe she called for whole cumin, and I don't have that, so I'm substituting it for ground cumin. And then she also called for some marjoram. Add some Mexican oregano and some thyme, and then we're gonna grind this all together. And then our last ingredient in the paste is apple cider vinegar. And this kind of just brings it all together. So now we've made this amazingly fragrant paste that is full of flavor that we're going to add to our meat later. Now our peppers are done rehydrating, so we are going to add them to our blender, just the peppers, reserving the liquid for later if we need it. To the blender, I'm also going to be adding 3/4 of a medium onion and 1.5 cups of apple cider vinegar. And then I'm going to blend this up until smooth. You can see just how smooth this turned out. All the peppers are all ground up. No skins or anything visible. That's what we want. That's what I want for my family. So if you do not have a mortar and pestle or molcajete, that's fine. You can just throw all those ingredients into the blender when you do the blender portion. But now we can add our peppers that we just ground up, our herb paste, and then the last couple ingredients all go into this ground pork. Also, I did not have to add any of that water that the peppers were rehydrating in for this batch because there was a lot in here, but when I did this for the single recipe for the 1.5 pounds, I did have to add a little bit of water because one of the downfalls of having a Vitamix is that it's so powerful that if you only have a little bit in here, it doesn't fully mix. Because the motor is just so fast, it just throws all the ingredients over to the side. So now having a fuller blender, I did not have to do that. But I'm gonna pour all of this onto my meat, scraping down all my sides. I scraped the top already, trying to get all those ingredients into the meat. Now I scraped all the seasoning paste out of my molcajete here. And I'm gonna add that in. And you could add water to that to get all the last little bits out, but I actually feel like that's plenty. And I don't want to add more moisture to this. And now we need to add the last seasonings, which is ancho chili powder, achote powder, and smoked paprika. Oh, and I can't forget the salt. And then I'm gonna put on my gloves and go to town working this in. And this is just because all this is very red and I don't really feel like dyeing my hands red. I'm gonna mix all this in and then we are almost done. So as you're mixing it, it seems like there is way too much of all of that mixture between the spices and the peppers and all the seasonings. It just seems like it's so much. But believe in the process. You just got to keep mixing. and it all comes together and it all soaks into that meat. So now I just dumped it into a colander. I used this clear bowl underneath to mix it all in, and you can see how clean it came out. So there is, even though while you're mixing it seems like there's way too much liquid in here, like I said, it will all soak in. But we want to put this in a colander and cover it with saran wrap and put it in the refrigerator until tomorrow, because we want all of these flavors to get married to that meat. Plus we want all the excess liquid to drip out into this bowl underneath to give it that clumping, nice texture and have it all stick together. It's not a super, you don't want your chorizo to be super moist. So we're gonna leave this, like I said, for overnight, which we're only halfway through the day, so just under 24 hours, I suppose. Half a day in the refrigerator to get some of that excess out and let these flavors meld. So this is the chorizo after it has sat in the refrigerator for almost 24 hours. And oh my gosh, I can't even pick this up. Yes, I can. You can see all that extra liquid that has come out of the meat. So I have all sorts of sausage stuffers. My meat grinder has an attachment on it. I have an actual like sausage press with a tube on it, but this is only 4.5 pounds of chorizo, and this is my last project with this pork, and I just want to get it done, so I'm just going to do it by hand. So I'm just going to divide these up into 6 12-ounce packages for my family. Those packages, those tubes of chorizo that I find at the store are like 9 ounces. They usually come in two logs. So this is a little more than, each one of these will be a little more than what a tube from the store will be. I've just made up these bags, pre-made them up, and I'm just gonna fold it over so that I don't get the top all nasty, and I'm just gonna fill it up by hand and weigh it out as close to 14 ounces as I can. I am, however, going to use this bag sealer that I have from LEM. I have all my bags filled and cleaned off, pushed all the meat to the bottom here, and I definitely suggest wearing gloves because the peppers that we use are very colorful. But it's just that simple. Try to get out as much air as I can. Give it a couple twists and put it through. So there we have it, my final pork project. I have 6 of these to go into my freezer. Our favorite way to have chorizo is for breakfast with some potatoes and eggs. So that is what I made these for. It's also good for tacos, which we had the first time. But since I only made a little bit, I wanted it to go as far as possible. So now I have 6 to put in my freezer for 6 breakfasts this year, which is more than we have our chorizo egg potato breakfast thing any other year that we've had it. But this chorizo was the last pork product that I was buying other than deli ham. Other than deli ham, I guess. But this was one of the things that I wanted to check off of my list we produce it. I wanted to make it here on the farm, and I'm so happy that I did. Hope you guys enjoy. I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you guys for stopping by today and joining in on our journey here at Bare Bones Living. We'll catch you on the next one.